It is incredible to be here. Last night was just absolutely extraordinary to walk through into that press gang. It was unbelievable. I've dreamt about this so many times, and the reality is nowhere near what I imagined it to be. It's so much better. This has been an extraordinary odyssey, really, for everyone, for my family, for us, for our supporters. And I really want to thank everyone who's been involved with this campaign, who's been supporting us, from the many hundreds of thousands of people, ordinary members of the public who joined the campaign, who supported us on Twitter and Facebook, who went out on marches and demos, to the diplomats and politicians, the Latvian government in particular and the Australian government, Julie Bishop and her team, Ralph King, Dr. Ralph King, the ambassador in Egypt, and his team did an absolutely remarkable job in supporting us. But I also want to thank you guys. It feels really weird to be on this side of the microphones, I have to say. Really out of character. It's a little bit odd, but I think perhaps one of the most amazing parts of this whole experience has been the way that the media, all of us, are generally a pretty fractious and cantankerous bunch at the best of times, very competitive, and it's very difficult, I know, to get us to all to cooperate and work together. But what we've seen out of this whole experience has been a sense of purpose and a sense of unity, which has absolutely blown me away. So, in so many ways, this has been a revelation. I'm still only just coming to understand the incredible extent of this campaign, of what has happened in support of us. And so to everyone who was involved in anything along the way, I really want to say an incredible, heartfelt thank you. Any questions?
Peter Greste, first of all, welcome home. Maggie Palmer from SBS World News and SBS Dateline. You mentioned that when you were released, it felt like a rebirth. I'm interested to know, when you walked through your family home last night, what was that feeling like?
Oh gosh, rebirth Mark II. I mean, it's not... the home that Mum and Dad are in at the moment isn't the home that I grew up in. So, in fact, I've only ever seen it empty. But what makes it a home, of course, is the family, are the people there. And this was the first time that, well, obviously the first time that we've been together since this whole thing began. But, you know, if I appreciated my family beforehand, what they've given me, what they've done for the campaign, and I think if I neglected anything in that in my opening remarks, it was to thank my family. I know more than anyone else perhaps, that this campaign would not have got half of the momentum that it has if it wasn't for the incredible contribution of my parents and my brothers, my in-laws, the way that they've expressed themselves with dignity, with passion, with resolve, has been just unbelievable. And I've rediscovered just how remarkable they all really are and how important they are. So, you know, it was unbelievable to be there.
Peter, from ABC World Today. It's great that you give credit to your family, but how did you keep yourself robust through this incredible experience?
Incarceration at the best of times, under the best of circumstances, is always going to be a pretty difficult experience. I knew, particularly because it was a relatively open-ended process, we never really were sure when it was going to end or how it was going to end. So we needed to prepare for the long haul. I know from my readings, I know from my experience with other people, doing stories on other people who've been through some pretty difficult times, that to get through it you need to be fit. And that's not just physically fit, it means staying mentally fit, intellectually fit, and spiritually fit. And so I and my colleagues made a very deliberate effort at staying physically fit. We had some pretty limited space, but we made sure that we worked out, that we kept ourselves healthy. I also embarked on began a course in a master's degree in international relations. And I also want to thank the staff at Griffith University for helping supply the material in the old-fashioned way. I was doing essays in pencil and paper, so you can imagine how frustrating it must have been for my poor professors to have to deal with that.
And Martin.
Sorry?
Martin Hodgson.
Oh, and Martin Hodgson also, who facilitated that whole, the degree process. But also I spent a lot of time meditating, just trying to stay calm, stay focused and stay relaxed. And I also want to pay credit to my colleagues in there. We would support one another very, very directly. I mean, we knew that people will have their up days and their down days, and we were very careful at helping one another out, listening to one another, talking to one another, supporting one another, and at the same time giving space when we needed it. And so I think we've all grown very close as a result of this process, as a result of this experience. But that was also very, very important to surviving it.
Peter, what are your immediate plans?
Well, you know, as they say in politics, spend time with the family. I don't quite know what's going to happen over the medium to longer term. I mean, I've only just walked out. There are so many things to think about, so many things to consider. You know, obviously there are some other projects that might emerge from this whole experience that I'd like to look at. But you know, right now there are far more doors that are opening up than I've really had a chance to look through. At the moment, my instinct. Do you mind closing your ears for a moment?
Oh dear, I know what's coming.
I don't want to give this up, my job up. I'm a correspondent, it's what I do. How I do it, whether I actually do go ahead with it, I don't know. That's the way I feel right now. You know, that's my honest answer, but that could easily change, and exactly how and where and under what circumstances, I don't know.
Following on from that, Peter, Lois, can I ask you how you feel about that?
Well, I've answered this before. And, you know, we've always believed that our children should follow their passion, and Peter's following his, and we need to let him do that. At the same time, he's got to know that we are not going to go through this again.
As you said at the airport last night, you have left 2 children behind. How difficult was that, and what are you going to do now to keep the campaign to get them out too?
Look, Andrew, it was tough. You know, we discussed this prospect. We knew that there was always a chance that one of us would leave, and some of the others would have to stay. That doesn't make it any easier. You know, we all, having talked it through, we understood what the circumstances were, and you know, they were all very happy for me. You can imagine, after 400 days in prison with these guys, we're very close, and it was very difficult to leave them behind. But I'm grateful to be out. I trust that they will follow in due course. It's going to take time, it's going to take some further efforts, but we'll see them out. And when we do, I'm going to party with them very, very hard indeed.
Peter, Steve Marshall from Television New Zealand. Welcome home.
Thank you very much.
Tony Abbott spoke a couple of hours ago and he expressed his thanks and gratitude to the Egyptian president. What would be your message to the Egyptian regime right now?
Look, I think this has generated a lot of goodwill, and you know, I think that it would be. I'd like to see that continue. Egypt is going through a very difficult time at the moment, politically, economically, socially, and so on, and I understand that very, very well. I wish the very best for Egypt and the Egyptian people in particular, and you know, some of the Egyptians I met, most of the Egyptians I met, in fact, were extraordinarily good to us and very, very generous, very, very supportive. And so, you know, I hope he does what is best for Egypt.
Peter, Kim Stevens from Fairfax Media. Just a couple of things. I know the elation today must contrast quite directly. Can you tell us what you felt the day you were sentenced to 7 years in jail?
That was always a tough day. That was the toughest day of the whole experience. I don't think anyone, certainly none of us, expected it. We all thought that would be the end of the process. Clearly, the judges thought very differently, but that obviously caught us very much by surprise. But then, as now, we were confident of our position, of our innocence, and we were confident that the process, if it was followed through to its logical conclusion, could only see us free. Well, we're not through that process yet. We haven't finished that yet. But it was a tough day. We just had to focus on the next on the next stage in the battle to work our way through this process. As I said to you before, we supported one another and moved ahead and started thinking about the campaign from that point on.
Peter, Max Butcher from Seven Network. We became so used to seeing you behind those grids for the past 1 year or so. How were you treated
Fine. I mean, we had no prison. Any prison system has its difficult places and has its more comfortable places. We certainly weren't abused. We had some, we had access to all of the things that we needed. It was restrictive. I mean, there were things that we weren't comfortable with, but then it's prison. The fact is, I'm in pretty good health. There's no problems that I have in any sense that I'm aware of anyway. We weren't abused in any way. We were, we were treated with respect and dignity, as much as could be expected under the circumstances. So that was fine.
Yeah. You said that you spent some time keeping fit outdoors. Can you describe what kind of space you were in and what your living space was actually like?
I'd love to. I'm afraid I can't. There are all sorts of reasons. I'm afraid on this one I can't tell you more detail on that. I have to pass on that.
When did you become aware of the scale of the campaign going on outside?
I'm not even sure I'm aware of it now. Look, Mum, Dad, Andrew and Mike would all come and bring me snippets of information. Occasionally we'd see something in the papers. We were able to get letters through, and some of them had photographs of people with the Zip the Lips campaign on. And so we were aware that things were happening. Occasionally we had a montage of photographs from campaigns around the world. And so everyone, we understood that there was a massive movement in support of us. And I thought I understood. I thought I got it. These guys kept telling me, you don't understand, you just don't get it. You can't possibly conceive of it. And I realised that I had no idea when I was expecting maybe a dozen cameras last night. Clearly I got that wrong.
Are you aware of how often your parents and brothers have sat just there and spoken to us?
No, I don't think I am. I mean, it's obviously a lot more than they've had a lot more experience or a lot more time out here than I've realised. In fact, I think it's probably fair to say that they've had more camera time than I've had in most of my career.
Peter, Ryan Lowe, 4BC. I want to know, how did the sand feel between your toes in Cyprus here?
Oh, awesome. Awesome. When you always have your dark days. And I often closed my eyes and just kind of let my mind drift to where it wanted to go. And almost invariably, it went to the beach, to the coast, to the sea in some form. Me and Andrew and Mike and my sisters-in-law, we all went sailing in the Whitsundays in 2013. And I always went back to those days on the boat. Wandering along the beach combing, swimming, so on. So to actually stand there and feel it between your toes was awesome. To me, the thing about this is that you realise just how important those little things are. I didn't see a whole lot of sunsets in the last 400 days or so. I haven't seen the stars a lot. I'm really keen just to get out there and enjoy those little things. Those are the bits and pieces that really make life worthwhile.
From 10 Eyewitness News. Our story bridge will be white tonight for you. Welcome home. How do you feel about that?
Listen, I'm speechless. I mean, I feel overawed by it, and to be honest with you, I'm incredibly humbled by it. In a funny way, I feel that I haven't actually done much to deserve this. I haven't done anything to deserve this. I sat in a box as a mute lump for 400 days, writing the occasional note. It was these guys that did everything else. And so to be honoured like that is frankly overwhelming. I'm deeply honoured by it, but also very, very humbled by it, and absolutely awed by the amount of support and expressions of goodwill that we're getting.
Do you think you'll walk down and check it out?
Oh gosh, if we get a chance, I want to take pictures of that. and knowing my family, knowing Oyas, where are you, Oyas? Yeah, my uncle there, who was a legend with a camera. He wears his camera in the way that he wears his arm.
Peter, there was some indication, or Dad might have said the other day, that Mum might put you over her knee when you got home.
Not so far, but
Not quite, but I've given him a bit of a whack in the stomach. Punch in the guts, yes.
Peter, it sounds like, Alex Petrie from the Australian Associated Press, it sounds like you had quite a strict routine when you were in jail. I'm wondering, in the days after, did you find you had a kind of residual clockwork to yourself that you were trying to kind of shake off, or any of those kind of qualities that stayed with you?
I'm not sure I understand. What?
You know, like you're talking about keeping physically fit and taking time to meditate. Are those things still part of your kind of daily routine?
Yeah, they are. I mean, I hope that they stay with me. I'm pretty sure they will. I'm probably in better physical condition than I've been for the past 20 years or so.
Ways to get fit,
yeah. As a kind of means of self-improvement, I wouldn't exactly recommend it. But I've learnt a lot about myself, a lot more than I ever anticipated. You know, sometimes you need to go through these kinds of baptisms of fire to learn things about yourself. We all need to push ourselves. One of the things that I realised while we were inside, though, to be honest with you, is that a lot of people have spoken, I know, of the way that we've handled this, but I sincerely believe that most of us are probably far more capable of coping with this kind of pressure, with difficult situations than we ever appreciate. The problem is that most of us are never confronted with that. Most of us are never put in that position where we really have to test ourselves. I was lucky enough in many respects to actually be tested, and in a way that really hasn't been threatening. One of the things I wrote in the letter home in the middle of the whole experience was that this felt partly like a rebirth, but also like a near-death experience, in the sense that I was really given an opportunity to look back at my life again, to look back at the screw-ups that I made, to appreciate all of the amazing things that I'd done and experienced in ways that I never really understood in the past. And until you get to that point where you're forced to take a good hard look at yourself, you don't really do it. So the kind of experience that people talk about when they approach death. I've been able to go through that without actually having to experience it.
But you must have been really angry at times. How did you cope with that anger?
Meditating. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I felt was I didn't need to. You need to recognise it and write it out. Simple as that. As you said, you have those days when you get angry, and that means you have those days when you don't, and so you just sit it out.
Peter, just two small questions. How do you feel about the actual groundswell of support from total strangers from across the world?
You know, as I said, overwhelmed and humbled, but I've also come to understand that this is really not so much about us as what we came to represent, and I think that that's really important. And I know that we've meant an awful lot to a lot of people. I understand that and I respect that, and I hope that continues.
Yeah, Stefan Albroster from SBS World News. Your two colleagues and other people are still in jail in Egypt. What are you going to personally do now to try to secure their freedom?
Look, we're going to be doing all that we can to talk to the right people to help them facilitate their release. It's a complicated process. There's a lot of legal issues involved, diplomatic issues and so on, and we're going to do all that we can to support that.
Peter, do you think that, in the darkest days, did you think that you might ever have to have served that whole 7 years?
No. I mean, there are a few moments, I guess, when you, particularly early on, when you were really forced to confront it and look at it and consider 7 years. But No, I didn't. In my heart, I didn't think we would. No.
What were your last words to your colleagues when you left? What did you say to them?
See you when I see you.
And when do you hope that will be?
How long's a piece of string? I mean, I really don't know. It's out of my hands, and there are issues involved that I'm not really across right now. We're doing our best to fill in some gaps, but I just don't know.
And as you said, you were dreaming of this moment. Do you dream of a moment where you two can go to the beach with them and experience the sunset all together as a big happy family?
Look, these guys are like brothers, you know. We've learnt a lot about each other. We've been through an awful lot together, and you know we can't ever take that away. So there's a lot that we've got in common, a lot that we share, and of course I want to celebrate that.
Loves, how do you feel? Can you tell us how you're feeling right now?
Oh, I'm pretty emotional right now, actually. Yes, and that I think is to do with a relief and happiness that the family are back together, and yeah. And I think I've said this before too. I'm so proud of my boys, our boys. And the whole family, our daughters-in-law, are just incredible. And the way we've all stuck together, it's one big, good, great family. Thank you.
Mike, what was it like to, get that news? I think you were going to go visit Peter the day that you found out he was released. What was it like watching, him come out and see you?
Well, I didn't see him until he was at the airport. So his release was separate to me. So it was arranged that I just saw him at the airport. So it was indeed a tremendous relief to see him there, and it was a very nervous time up until from the moment I was advised that of his imminent release to the time I saw him, and indeed the time we landed in Cyprus. It was a bit nervous, but at the same time very exhilarating.
Were you worried that they might change their minds? And
look, you just we've had a lot of false hopes throughout this whole process, and you're never really 100% sure until it's sort of happened. So there was a certain amount of nervousness, but at the same time, just hope that this was finally it.
Why Cyprus?
It's close. It has a beach. What more do you need?
Whose choice was it?
It was.
King.
Sorry, no. Well, it was something. It was based on what we discussed.
Yes, but it was moved to Cyprus because of the
good advice from the people we had around us.
Yeah.
Andrew, you described the last 400 days as being like living under a dark cloud. How do you feel now?
Busted. Just fun, unbelievable. It's fantastic. It's obviously there's a bit of work to do in the next coming days, but I'm going to happily go back and disappear under a cotton bush somewhere and enjoy the cotton harvest. And
will Peter be buying the beers tonight?
might be one or two.
You'll be buying them for the next year.
I really wish you hadn't asked that.
Peter, just wondering if there are any big news items that you've become aware of since being released?
Since being released, gosh, no. I don't think we had a look at the newspaper now.
This is a reasonably big one.
Peter, do you give Mum a request for dinner tonight?
No, I think we're going out. I think Mum's off the hook for the cooking.
So, Peter, are you expecting to experience any psychological impacts over the coming months? I mean, it's going to be a massive change.
Yeah, of course it is. Look, these experiences are always tough, and you're never quite sure. I know I've been doing this job now for 25, 30 years. 25 years, not 30. And I've been through a lot of experiences. I've seen a lot of people who've been through some pretty tough experiences, and I know that psychological stress is a potential issue, is a real issue. But at the moment, I have to say that I'm feeling pretty strong and confident. I haven't had the kinds of symptoms that you might expect, but you know, often these things take time to unfold. The lesson is that we simply have to keep an eye on it. I've got to be aware of it and take care of myself.
So you expect yourself and the whole family to fade from the limelight for a while now, I imagine?
Well, I mean, I hope so. There's more work to be done, but and there are things to be. We want to make the most of this, and there are things that I want to do after this as well. But no, I think our moment in the spotlight will fade for a little bit, and we get a chance to step back and recover.
And do you think that there's anything that the Australian government can do to help your colleagues?
Look, there's a lot that can be done. There's a lot that should be avoided. The diplomats are far better placed to make those kinds of decisions.
Is there any chance that you'll be meeting with any of them, or Julie Bishop? Or...
I think at this point it's probably time to call. Peter's actually got another interview coming up. Thank you very, very much, guys.